horrible, horrible Pentagonian blocks in my Sonic game. With the risk of sounding a bit humble, in the 10 years I've been animating, I'm occasionally referred to by fans as the god of comedy.
You've also been referred to as a drooling, talentless 6-year-old.
Yeah. Anyway, Chapter 12, The Science of Comedy, Part 1, Character Humor.
Sonic has a history with comedy. Of course, the characters are silly right from the start, and even if the games themselves are mostly straightforward, outside the game, Sonic is always portrayed in a Looney Tunes style. And not just in the American shows either. Even the Japanese had their wacky, crazy Sonic. The stories may be straight and sometimes serious, but almost every character seems to be mostly created out of some humour aspect. The stalky girlfriend, crazy scientist, the overly polite girl, the money-obsessed musclehead. Character jokes are right there at the foundation.
In this chapter we will start explaining some basic elements of comedy in general. Sorry, we need to get some basic information out of the way first before we can get deeper into the subject. We need to explain a bit about the origin of humor, about dark comedy, and about character humor. Keep in mind, we're not psychologists. We're not psychologists, psycho people. Not to mention the workings of humor on the human psyche is not all that well documented anyway, so there's a lot of personal guessing here, but whatever.
So, let's start at the beginning. The very beginning. Why do people laugh, you ask? Why did evolution, or God, or coffee beans, whatever you believe in, introduce laughing to our brains? Again, we're not those psychologists here, but I've read a very interesting theory once that made a lot of sense, and will be central to our further exploration of comedy. So, a long time ago we were cavemen. Language didn't exist yet, so they couldn't talk together. Words weren't invented yet. Here, emotions were the primary manner to communicate. Crying in sadness portrays helplessness, anger, the demand for obedience. What about laughter? So, thousands of years ago, our ancestors were sitting in their cave doing, well, whatever people did before video games were invented, until there's suddenly a horrifying noise outside. Is it a saber-toothed tiger? A T-Rex?
Dinosaurs didn't exist alongside humans.
Perhaps even a humorous fat jerk gruesomely boring them to death. So our caveman friends push their bravest warrior outside the cave to take a look. He investigates their surroundings and discovers the roar sound just came from the wind. So our warrior laughs, and the other cavemen join in. Ho ho ho, what a good joke. Well, not really. Cavemen didn't have a very sophisticated sense of humour yet. No, the first use of laughter was to tell the tribe that the danger is over.
Ah, I see. In fact, I think laughing is the human body's way to cool down from fear. When people are nervous, they can laugh or giggle a lot. Being nervous is your body desperately trying to calm itself from fear. Think about it, a lot of jokes are about bringing the audience in discomfort, like horror comedies. There's a scary thing happening, but suddenly it ends up being silly. It's about breaking the tension. The way laughter is used by our ancestor may not be directly used as communication anymore, but it does introduce two vital comedy elements, essential to any comedian. The first one is obvious, the twist, the punchline. That's a joke, right? The comedian sets the audience to expect something, but all of a sudden something else happens. Boom! Didn't see that one coming. Haha, the twist!
The second vital comedy element we observe here is more subtle, and therefore often overlooked. Karma. Laughter was used as a keyword for safety. For a joke to really work, there has to be some sort of karma in it. Allow me to demonstrate. Let's take a look at an example.
Give me your money.
This is what I call neutral comedy. Almost everyone understands it. As a comedian, you don't have to work hard or create much context in order for this joke to work. A person behaves badly. He gets punished for it. Karma, justice, is how the world is supposed to work in our mind. Therefore, the joke is very easy to digest. You don't worry too much where the anvil came from and such, because the point of the joke is clear. Now, consider this next example.
Give me your money. So, dark humor. We go against the natural way of thinking here. Now the victim is punished, which makes no sense. We challenge the audience to laugh at injustice. It goes against the theme of safety. Like the caveman laughing if there was actually a monster. It's unnatural. It goes against its purpose. Doesn't mean it isn't funny. Just that I, as a comedian, need to add a lot more guidance and context in order to make it work, since we need to drag the audience out of their natural way of thinking. But the first joke works on almost any level and doesn't need special consideration. Dark humor usually only works in 3 directions. When I force the audience to laugh at something unnatural, something unfair, they can get 3 reactions. Number 1, detachment. Haha! Look at a stupid lady getting hurt! We laugh at people getting hurt. Why? It's educational. Watching someone getting hurt teaches us that we shouldn't behave like them. One of the things our more sophisticated modern brain added to the primitive weapon against fear that laughter original was, is the ability to learn. You laugh at a guy doing something stupid and getting hurt because it teaches us not to behave like that. After all, a good joke is easier to remember than the complicated physics of gravity. However, we only laugh when we're detached. We don't want to see the guy who comically fell on his face on YouTube to be actually dying in a hospital bed. Despite the fact that getting hurt under a random anvil isn't really a relevant lesson to learn, it still triggers that part of the brain that rewards us for learning, so we feel good and laugh. Therefore, this element of dark humor is the best one for pure comedy purposes. The problem with this form of comedy is that it removes humanity and emotion from the experience. If you're trying to tell a genuine story with genuine characters I'm supposed to care about, this form of comedy will ruin the experience. But if you just want to laugh, it's great! Second reaction, sympathy. If I let the audience sympathize with the victim by adding some element like this. Oh no, not again. We feel more sympathy. We relate to the situation. It's just one of those days where everything goes wrong. I had one of those days. Poor lady. Laughing at the unfortunate parts of life. It's less funny, but unlike detachment, you can actually tell a proper story if you deal with it this way. The third reaction is discomfort. For example, after the lady gets crushed, instead of cutting away, we watch her in pain while she slowly tries to crawl out of it. The audience would first be laughing, look at the lady getting hurt, but then the longer the scene drags on, the more uncomfortable we feel, until we hate ourselves for laughing at the joke to begin with. With this technique, you're making a point, confronting the audience by making them think about what they're really laughing at. So, those are the 3 main directions you can go to with dark comedy. Understanding which of those 3 directions you want to go to is key for a writer. For myself, even though my personal work never goes entirely in one direction, I'm usually floating in the middle, you can still tell depending on what movie I'm making that I go more into one direction or another. If I parody a game in which I respect and like, I go mostly for the detachment humor. Me and Alex love Shadow's game, so the Shadow parody we made is mostly detached in its humor. Sonic and pals are slowly eaten by Doom's monsters. Although that joke is gruesome and dark in concept, it's entirely detached and emotionless in execution. You laugh at their complete lack of reaction to the horror, and the audience isn't really concerned about their safety. We don't even show them getting out of the situation either. You can just easily picture Tills just grabbing his arm again and putting it back into place off screen. We celebrate Shadow's game, so the dark humor is done with cheerful ignorance. However, look at my Sonic Free Riders parody, a game whose story I really hate, and the jokes become much more mean-spirited and uncomfortable. Characters are more ugly, there's more awkward and uncomfortable themes being used, like butt rape, there's a lot of hate and anger. I'm making a point that I consider the story uncomfortable, and as such the parody is more uncomfortable. Then compare that to IMP, a more neutral show I'm making, which, unlike parodies, require the audience to relate with the characters more than just being punchlines, so there's a lot more quiet and humane moments. So characters that are more dark or do unethical things will be acknowledged to act wrong, perhaps even realizing it themselves. Just a bit more karma, a bit more humanity. Not very much, it's not a drama show or an after-school special, but there's just enough proper human behavior and karma to make the audience go, nah, that was a nice story, I want to see them in another adventure. At least I hope it does. A good writer does more than just tell as many jokes as possible. You also keep track of what kind of mood you want and what mindset you want the audience to have.
Character humour is when the comedy directly comes from a main character becomes a complete idiot, or have some other kind of exaggerated behaviour or personality. Mr. You know the drill. You have 2 kinds of character humour. Let's call them TV show level jokes or internet level jokes. Let's see if we can make fun of Vector's obsession with money. Here's a joke like you could find on Newgrounds or YouTube.
Help, I'm stuck! Save me, Vector!
I like money!
Sharp and harsh humour. Vector as a person is completely destroyed here. We exaggerate his interest in money so much that he's become a psychopath whose obsession with money is the only personality he has. It's funny, but it destroys the character. You can no longer use him for an actual story. He's now nothing more than a punchline to be laughed at. Now here's the same joke, TV style.
Help me! I'm stuck!
Don't worry, Charmy. I'll help you. Hang on, buddy. Ooh, do I see a dime there on the floor? Oops, sorry Charming, I almost forgot.
The joke is slightly more weak, but it contains more context, and Vector's behaviour is more complex than just his interest in money. The joke may be less funny, but you keep Vector intact as a character, and you can still use him to tell a dramatic story.
So same thing as with the dark humor thing, really. The thing about character humor, about mocking things, is that they always convey a message. If I make the joke, "Aha, Big the Cat is fat!" I'm essentially saying, people are required to live up to my requirements of body structure, and those not physical fit enough should be ridiculed. The audience would have to agree with that statement in order to find it funny. However, add more context will broaden the message. Like, make Big the Cat want to become an ice skater. In this case, his body shape will complicate his desire. And therefore, haha, look at him, he's fat joke gains a little bit more context, a little bit more meaning. We're not laughing at his body shape, we're laughing at his ignorance of the implications of his body shape. So, let's finally talk about the actual Sonic games and apply the things we introduced. Let's take a look at Amy Rose, back when she still had a brain.
Little birdie's got in trouble. I think you should be his bodyguard a little while.
What? We know Sonic is the big world-saving, robot-destroying hero. And Amy is set up as the simple-minded girl concerned about the life of a pretty little bird. So when they have their conversation together, Amy demands Sonic to take care of the bird, which creates an amusing reaction. Now it's the clash of two different personalities, their different priorities. Now the punchline of the joke is not, haha, Amy's stupid idiot, or haha, Sonic's dumb idiot. It's funny because there's a comical situation created by the different priorities Amy has over Sonic. Amy and Sonic themselves still work as characters. I understand where they're coming from, I'm still invested in their story, their souls are intact. It's their conflict that's funny, not the characters themselves. Now compare that with Sonic and Amy's interaction in Sonic Generations.
You saved me, Sonic. I was afraid I'd never be able to flirt with you again.
So the joke is that despite being trapped in limbo's a horrible fate, Amy immediately goes back to flirt with Sonic at this completely inappropriate time. And this is character-breaking humor. The punchline of the joke here is, nah, Amy's stupid idiot and Sonic hates her. There's not really a deeper subtext here. We're laughing directly at Amy, and from this point on, we can't take her character seriously anymore. She's so consumed by her obsession with Sonic that she ceases to function as an actual human being. Or a hedgehog being, whatever. This is internet humor. The joke is more sharp, more crazy this way, so most people would probably find this joke a lot funnier than the first. However, you can no longer use Amy as a proper character after this point. She's a crazy, psychopathic punchline. Sonic X was the first Sonic thing that brought in the more darker streaks. Now with Sonic X, I think this works perfectly, because there's a lot of downtime. Amy's just a normal person, interacting with others, talking about things, sharing thoughts. Then, Sonic manipulates her thoughts, he discovers that, gets angry, and Sonic is punished. So we have a neutral start, a setup, the big laugh, and a finale where karma is dealt. So it's sympathetic. They do crazy things, but still sustain a story. However, in the games, the story is tighter. There's almost no downtime, so jokes almost never have a proper setup or punchline.
Let's talk about Charmy B. He's the sidekick of the Chaotix, and even Shadow at one point. The older and more badass characters occupied with the fate of the world. Charmy acts hyperactive, silly, tries to imitate his elders' behaviour but fails to understand them, keeps screwing up the missions. Wacky!
So, in the early days, humor in Sonic was harmless, just silly designs and neutral, family-friendly cartoonness. In Sonic Adventure, it became more sympathetic mocking, some light teasing around. But from Sonic Adventure 2 on, the jokes became more detached, naive. G-Wen throwing giant trucks and explosions after you in the middle of the city, Knuckles almost killing everyone with a rocket in panic to try to get his emeralds, etc. It's extreme humor, but very naive. Silly. It kind of reminds me of those old NES games where stories dealing with governments and terrorists are handled like a child wrote them. It's funny and silly and detached. Usually, I accept everything. It's like a Naked Gun movie to me at this point. Anything can happen and I just laugh. G-Wen could hire Cream to serve them cookies in the middle of a battlefield, and I just smirk and completely go with it. It's how naive and simple the series has become. Or at least once before Unleashed got released. The thing is, though, that jokes like that mostly work when it's harmless and optimistic. When negative things start happening, it's harder to accept silly things. So Charmy, as a character, I have no problems with it. Dumb 8-year-old child hired as a detective. Sure, it's cute, it's adorable. The part where it becomes a problem is where Vector is constantly angry at Charmy, constantly yelling and hurting him. This is where the humor goes from detached to uncomfortable. I saw an interview with Leslie Nielsen once, talking about Police Squad and Naked Gun and such, and he said the key to that series is that nobody ever gets frustrated or angry at the silly things happening. It's just how the world works. That's what's keeping us from asking questions. But add a character that's constantly frustrated, constantly angry, and then we start to think more. This is clearly not how the world is supposed to work here.
So, whenever someone like Charmy would screw something up for the Chaotix, your brain starts asking questions. Why is the Chaotix still hiring him? The better those questions are answered in the material, the stronger the foundation of your jokes will be, and therefore will increase the chance of the audience understanding and feel more comfortable laughing at it.
We're supposed to assume it's because he's best pals with Vector and Espio, but we never get to see the friendship in the games. They're constantly frustrated and yelling at each other. Again, in Sonic X it works because there's downtime, there's room to breathe, and we see the Chaotix in more neutral settings. But in the games there's almost none of that. So the friendship isn't really on display here. So is there a comedy reason why Charmy's in the Chaotix? Like Vector having a sister who goes,
You have to take care of little Charmy or I won't pay the rent.
Oh no!
so Charmy screwing up becomes funny because you have to that setup to deal with? Nope, none of that either.
Yeah, or at the very least give Charmy a clear skill that the Chaotix requires. But there's nothing. Charmy is an utterly meaningless little bugger, and Vector an angry and violent and yelling git. Ha ha ha, give Charmy a wallet because he sucks. The comedy around this character is dark, but Sonic the Hedgehog stories aren't dark. Well, okay, we do use Shadow the Hedgehog's game as an example.
What? No. Shadow the Hedgehog's game is not dark. Not dark at all. It's a happy story. It's a freaking Care Bear story.
What? Now you're being silly!
No, look, you said this about Sonic Adventure 2 yourself. People tend to focus on loose details and elements of the story, but never the actual soul, the actual direction of the story. So Shadow says damn a few times as a gun, and the art style's drab and depressing. So what? Damn, 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 damn. Oh no, the Sonic Dissected episode is so dark now. No. To me, in order for a story to be dark, the story needs to require the audience to consider and understand uncomfortable ideas, not just have those elements. Just murder isn't dark. How a murder happens, to consider consequences, to really understand how a person can turn into a murderer, and even consider the idea of themselves becoming one, then it starts to become dark. If you use mature themes without weight, it's not dark, it's comical. Watching a guy just shoot someone who falls over is funny. The story in Shadow doesn't have much weight. Yeah, Shadow shoots humans, whatever. We see humans still breathe and talk after they're down, so they're clearly still alive. City is destroyed, so what? The game immediately makes sure that we know everyone is evacuated.
Orders were issued yesterday, and everyone has been evacuated to the safe zone.
No worries, kids. The local puppy orphanage is all safe. Yes, it has dark endings, but they're not really built up. The story is so fragmented that I don't get a real feel of how Shadow got corrupted. He just goes from one cheesy mission to the next comical action scene. And just when it starts to become a little uncomfortable, we immediately cut to the end credits. Boom. So violence, curse words, whatever. It's just thrown in and so meaningless and juvenile that they might as well throw in incest and racism for all I care. It's about Shadow overcoming his hatred of humans, but humans never do really anything wrong here, so the conflict is meaningless. All there is Maria's tragic death, which is sure heavy, but though it's a leftover from Adventure 2. And the circumstances around that are so fake, I still have no idea what to think of it. It's so weird for me to remember this supposedly happened 50 years ago, so right after the Second World War, despite GUN still having the same uniforms and technology. And there's no characters representing GUN at the time of the tragedy. The only GUN staff we know are the General and the President, and one has nothing to do or never reacts to Maria's death, and the other one is against Maria's death as much as Shadow, so there's no conflict. And Doom has even less motivation.
Kill all humans! Humans suck! Blah!
Doom is not dark. He doesn't make me consider killing humans or be scared. He's comical, he's funny. Heck, entire Shadow game is hysterical, that's why I love it. Like at the beginning, aliens fall down the streets and attack humans. I love Shadow's reaction.
Look how pathetic they are.
What? The humans didn't do anything. They just get randomly surprised by aliens. It's like if a T-Rex would suddenly fall down from the sky and Shadow would be laughing at the ends, randomly crash under it. Haha, you stupid ant, you suck. Or another scene, I love this one.
Shadow, let me share with you a piece of your past. It's filled with nothing but hatred and contempt for the humans.
Hatred and contempt for the humans.
Fantastic! Doom is like,
Shadow, I will tell you about your past. The secret of your past is humans suck!
and Shadow is acting all like a schoolboy writing down notes. Humans suck. Okay, I got it. Or this scene.
So, you finally come to realize just how abominable these humans are.
Amazing! I love how quiet the scene is, with Doom and Shadow just staring at the stars and the incredible epic awe of the universe. Look at those stars, Doom. What do you see?
Oh, I see. I see that humans suck! Kill them all!
I love them. They're hysterical. Okay, Shadow has a good reason to hate humans because of Maria's death, and Doom needs to manipulate Shadow in order to drain humans' energy. But this conflict is presented in such a simplistic fashion. It's just funny to me. The hell with Chip or Orbord or whatever. I want Shadow and Doom as the comic relief in the games. Their mindless anger is hysterical. And unlike the Chaotix, their hatred is amusing because there's passion behind it. This positive energy. I hate humans, let's destroy them! Anger that leads to people taking action is funny. Anger that leads to the blockage of action is irritating. So nah, the darkness of the story is not the thing. My biggest issue with how character humor goes in the Sonic games is how it contradicts the moral of the story. Like in Generations, none of Sonic's friends outside of Tails get any attention, and the time they do get to say something, it's mostly mean-spirited, giving me the hunch the current Sonic writers don't care much for anyone outside Sonic, Tails, and Eggman. So, Amy's an idiot and Sonic hates her, Charmy's hyperactive and annoying and Sonic hates him, and then a couple scenes later, Sonic is wounded and knocked out and doomed, and then Sonic's friends appear! Yay, it's Amy and Charmy! Yay, they're my friends, they give me strength! What? So first you spent the entire game making jokes at their expense about how pathetic those characters are, and now you take a 180 degrees turn and I'm supposed to be heartwarmed here? That's like if Cartman suddenly shows up to support Kyle, or Invader Zim cheers on Dib, or Waldorf Settler support Fonzie or whatever. Yay, my friends! Huh? If you have a dark character whose entire purpose is to create tension for the hero, who has this antagonistic thing going on, you can't suddenly go My Little Ponies on us and make it about friendship. You need redemption, downtime, karma for that, not go from one extreme to another on a whim. Jokes have meaning. They convey a message, just like dialogue does. And it bothers me when story writers use jokes as separate things and don't see how it influences or even contradicts the story. Sonic Rush, perfect example. Story's supposed to be about Blaze, the loner, meeting up with Sonic and friends and learning the importance of friendship. But then every character is written in internet parody comedy style. So everyone is a one-dimensional asshole yelling at Blaze or lecturing her at the drop of a hat. Oh look, Amy's threatening violence on Cream and yelling at Blaze about Sonic. Now I'm so fuzzy and warm inside when she demands Blaze that she needs friendshipy things and be friends with friendship and whatever.
It's this clumsy use of humour and the lack of humanity that makes so many fans hate modern Amy and Charmy.
That's what it all boils down to, yeah. Still, being the detached asshole that I am, I enjoy the humor and silliness of the Dark Age. It has its charm, just some balancing problems. And humor in Sonic games could be much worse. Much, much, much worse.